All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful ideas ever cooked up about where religion comes from. It was this single, elegant theory that, for a while, seemed to explain, well, pretty much everything. It all kicks off with a really basic question, one that humanity has been wrestling with forever.
You know that feeling, right? It's totally universal. That sense that the world isn't just dead rock and water, but that there's some kind of intention or personality, maybe even a life in things. And that feeling, that deep-seated mystery, is right at the heart of our story today.
So enter a guy named Edward Burnett Tylor. He was an ethnologist, which is a fancy way of saying he studied and compared different human cultures. And Tylor had this incredible talent for organizing things. He was on a mission to create one single scientific theory to explain how humans first started believing in the supernatural. And what he came up with? Wow. It was honestly breathtaking in its simplicity and just how much it covered. He called it Animism. So here's the core idea. Taylor argued that early humans believed that everything had a soul. And I mean everything. Not just people, but animals, plants, rivers, rocks, the wind, the sun. The whole world was just buzzing with spiritual beings. So the big question is, how on earth did they come up with that idea? Well, Tylor laid it out in what he saw as a perfectly logical process. It all starts with a puzzle. Think about it. When you dream, it feels like a part of you is off having adventures while your body is just lying there. And when someone dies, it seems like that same part just leaves for good. So for early humans, the logical conclusion was simple. There must be a soul that can separate from the body. And once you've got that idea of a soul, the next step is easy. You start projecting it onto everything else in the world that seems to have a life of its own. But Tylor didn't stop there. Oh no. He saw this as just the first step on a giant evolutionary ladder. He figured once you believe in souls, it's a short hop to believing they stick around after death as spirits. And if you have powerful ancestor spirits, you'd better keep them happy. And bam, that's the start of worship. From there, the ladder keeps going up, you get bigger nature spirits, then a whole cast of different gods, and finally, you reach the very top, the belief in one single supreme being. For Tylor, it was this perfect, clean, upward march for all of humanity. And let me tell you, this wasn't just some influential idea. For decades, it absolutely dominated the scientific study of religion. His theory was so compelling, so neat, it pretty much became the foundation of modern anthropology. The source material says his work had a triumphant career through the scientific world. Scholars everywhere gave it unqualified acceptance. For all intents and purposes, this wasn't just a theory anymore. It was treated as scientific fact. But you know how it goes with these grand theories that seem to explain everything, right? Sooner or later, the cracks start to appear. New evidence starts bubbling up that just doesn't quite fit into that nice, tidy picture. Researchers started asking a pretty awkward question. The theory was a beautiful piece of logic, for sure, but did it actually match what was happening in the real world? And as more and more ethnologists went out and did fieldwork, the answer became clearer and clearer. Well, not quite. So the main disagreement boiled down to this. Tylor saw history as a single, straight highway that all of humanity was traveling on. But his critics looked at the evidence and said, hold on, there's no proof of one single road. The real history of religion looked a whole lot messier, more like a tangled forest of branching trails, with different cultures starting at different places and heading in all sorts of directions. The first big hit to the theory was this idea called pre-animism. Some researchers started to think that maybe, just maybe, before people believed in individual little souls, they believed in something more general, like a kind of impersonal magical force that was just out there in the world. And if that was true, it meant animism wasn't the bottom rung of the ladder after all. But that was just a crack. The discovery that would really shatter Tylor's beautiful theory was something nobody saw coming, something that turned his whole evolutionary ladder completely upside down. Researchers, including, and get this, Tylor's own student, Andrew Lang, started finding something incredible. They found that many of the cultures Tylor's theory put at the very bottom of the ladder already believed in a creator, a supreme being. We're talking about peoples in Australia, the Arctic, parts of Africa. This was just a devastating blow. I mean, how could the final stage of religious evolution be showing up at the very beginning? The ladder wasn't just wobbly anymore, it was completely broken. As the source bluntly puts it, this evidence finally and inescapably puts Tylor's theory out of court. So the theory was disproven. Case closed, game over, right? Well, not so fast, because even in its failure, Topler's work left behind a legacy that was actually incredibly important. Think of it this way. Before Tylor, the study of early religions was just a total mess. It was like having 1,000 puzzle pieces dumped on a table with no picture on the box to guide you. His greatest contribution, his permanent importance, was that he built the frame for the puzzle. He was the first one to take this huge mass of material and create a system to try and make sense of it. And yeah, his final picture was wrong, but by creating that framework, he made it possible for everyone else to come along and start putting the pieces in the right places. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to chew on. The story of animism is this amazing example of how a brilliant, logical, super simple explanation can totally take over the world and still be wrong. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that our search for the truth is a process. It's built on these big ideas that get tested, get challenged, and sometimes get thrown out, but each one, even the wrong ones, gets us just a little bit closer to understanding the complicated truth.